Good evening. We're here this evening on the left coast. It's July 8th, 2020, Wednesday. Uh, our subject tonight, as we continue in our survival of seniors, uh, tonight we're going to be talking about the phrase of two is one and one is none. And I'll explain that in just a little bit. I'm sure some of you already know what that means. Uh, I've been watching the news, which is a bad thing anymore. The only thing on the excuse me, the only thing on the news is everything's bad. Everything's really bad. World's falling apart. Everybody's going to die. Seems like the media is nothing but into fear, and they want to just produce more and more fear for everyone. They want us all to hunker down in our houses and don't come out. I don't know. What the end goal is, I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of theories out there about what this is all about, really. Uh, the COVID, the flu virus, whatever you want to call it, is real. There are people that are meeting their demise from it. It's not something to be messed with. Here in Oregon, if you're inside any kind of indoor facility, business, or whatever, you must wear a mask. That's the rules. Uh, Makes it a little harder to breathe. First thing I find when I go to the store, I've got to pull the mask down off my nose so that I don't fog up my glasses so I can see. Uh, I don't know. I'm not supposed to do that either, I guess. But with all this fear mongering, as I call it, where everything you're supposed to be afraid of everything, the world's coming to an end, and on and on and on. To me, fear equals prepare, and I think there's some things you can't prepare for. My grandfather, who raised me till I was 11, I think I said that before, uh, taught me that only worry about the things that you have control over. And if you don't have control over it, don't worry about it. Now, as we all know, whatever happened yesterday to us, around us, or about us, we can't change that. What happened, happened. What's going to happen tomorrow? I don't know. Uh, I can't change that either in most cases. But today, I can at least in the moment prepare for things because there are unfortunate things that happen. Everything from this disaster or that disaster, minor or major. So that's the whole idea. I'm not preparing or talking about surviving the end of the world or the apocalypse. I'm talking about preparing for things that do happen. Things like earthquakes, depending on what part of the country or the world you're in, hurricanes, tornadoes. Those are the things you want to prepare for. And you've got to have basics, the basics that you have to prepare for. Oh, what? Can't believe it. Now, my theme of my talk tonight is two is one and one is none. And I asked my wife, she knew what that meant. She really didn't. And what that means is if you have one of something, and I'll use the example of a can opener, and power's down and all that kind of stuff, and you have canned goods to survive, to make meals, but your can opener breaks, basically you have none. But if you had some forethought and you bought a second can opener, and you have two can openers and one breaks, then you have one. So two is one and one is none. That applies to most everything. Everything from food to water even. If your faucet quits, the water quits running in your faucet, or you get your water to drink and bathe and everything else. But if you have bottled water, or you have some other way of taking water and filtering it so it's usable. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Nose is just, can't believe it. Then You have something. You have one. Again, two is one, one is none. You want to have things, and I'll show a little bit of video of my patio garden. I have a little patio. It's about very big, but I've put out some containers. I've even taken the table, the patio set that I have out there, a large metal patio set, and I put a small swimming pool, two of them actually, and put holes in the bottom. I filled it up with compost, and then I planted things in it. I've got cucumbers, I've got lettuce, and kale, all growing in it, and they're doing great. So I have a little bit of food also if for some reason I can't go to the store and get some fresh produce, fresh vegetables. I've got some that I'm growing. I'm growing tomatoes out there. I'm growing radishes. I'm growing onions. I'm growing peppers. Let's see. I think that's about it. Oh, yeah, some carrots. And as things are grown and I harvest them, I'll be putting other small vegetables in there also. So even in a small space, you can grow something. And I love gardening, but I'm limited to the small patio garden that I've developed, and I'll show a video about that in the future. One of the things too I want to talk about is being able to get home. I don't know how many of you ever thought about that, but what do you have in your vehicle? Do you have something in there? You can get stuck somewhere. I remember years ago, a good friend of mine who worked in Portland. When you come south on I-5, there is a bottleneck. When you come down, there's a river where you cross the Willamette River. And once you're on that freeway, it's pretty hard, especially if it's all jammed up behind you. And there was a major accident on the bridge. And it's like a 3-lane on each side bridge, plus service lanes on the side. And the whole thing was blocked southbound. And he was just before you get to the bridge, so he couldn't turn around and go back to an on-ramp. So he was stuck there, and he was stuck there for like 4.5 hours. He couldn't do anything. It wasn't super hot, but it was fairly warm, and he was stuck there. Nothing he could do. Now in my car, in the trunk, I have a wire basket like you use for. They used to carry milk in, 4 1-gallon jugs of milk that they had in the thing, before they had plastic ones. It's a metal one. I've got one of those in there, and in that I've got a set of jumper cables on the bottom. I've got some bungee cords, but then I've got a backpack in there, and in that backpack I have different items. I have items if I'm stuck somewhere where it's cold and I need to build a fire. I have fire starters. I have toilet paper if you have that problem where you have to use the toilet. Maybe off the side of the road somewhere if you're out in the country. But there's many things in there. Some candy bars, protein type bars. In the back seat, and I think I've said this before, I've got a case of water. So if we have to sit somewhere for several hours, we're prepared. If we have to stay there overnight, I've got some carry blankets in the car, and I also carry emergency blankets in that backpack. So there's quite a few things, and I'll go through that one of these days. All I'm saying is you got to be thinking of the simple things to be prepared. The very basic, simple things. You know, just like here, sitting at my desk, off to the side on the floor, I've got a briefcase. Now, in that briefcase is copies of important papers. I've got birth certificates, social security cards, just you name it, what you happen to need. Medicare and medical information, all those kind of things are in there. And why is it all in a briefcase instead of being in a file cabinet someplace? It's in a briefcase. These are mostly copies that I have. It's in a briefcase in case we have to leave here in a hurry for some reason. There's a fire or there's whatever. I can grab that briefcase and go right out the door with it and put it in the car with me. Now, I had this happen to us when we lived out in a country farm not a farm, but in a farming community, and we're in the house there we were renting, and there's big field of grass and everything down there. It was a hot summer day, and somehow the field fire got started. Well, the winds were blowing, and it was blowing right towards where we lived. And the sheriff's office came up there, and the firefighters were down there fighting it. But the sheriff's office came up, and it was like 3 or 4 homes up there, and told us to evacuate, to move, leave, okay, because they were having a hard time getting a handle on it. So grabbed the briefcase, out the car, got in the car, and we drove away. Went over to my daughter's house for a few hours. It amounted to nothing. But it really showed that if for some reason the fire had got there and consumed our house that we were living in, I still had my important papers with me. So these are things you need to think ahead. You need to be prepared. Again, instead of being fearful, be prepared. You know, uh, I always kind of end these sessions with a Bible verse. Since we're on basics, I'll bring up a very basic Bible verse. I'm sure you've all watched TV. You had a football game or a basketball game or some game where people are up in the stands and they got cardboard signs or whatever, and it says John 3:16. And maybe some of you don't know what that means. It's just some wacko with a Bible verse hanging up, standing there in the stands. Well, John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life." And that person is Jesus Christ. If you don't know Jesus Christ, I call on you to ask Him into your heart. When all things get looking very gloomy and everything's down, you can always call on Him. He's always there for you. With that, I want to say, hey, have a good night, and we'll talk to you again real soon.